And this is airing tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yes, airing 7 a.m. your time, 10 our
Cool.
time.
All right. Well, I can count you down from 5 whenever you're ready.
Okay, let's do
You
this.
got this.
So if Rachel, if I really mess up because it's being pre-recorded, we can cut that out.
Yes. No, I'll write down whatever you want me to cut out. I'll be listening in if there's any extra noises or, pauses that are like bigger than a few seconds, stuff like that. So I'll be listening in. So don't worry.
Okay, I'm gonna take a deep breath in. Ooh.
Cool. Yay. All right. Let's start in 5, 4, 3.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Women Thriving Unapologetically. I am your host, Lynsie McKeown, and it is my great pleasure to be here today for my very first episode. This is a sanctuary for you to land every week and feel connected through inspiring and powerfully honest conversations with women like you. We will cover a vast array of topics that empower you to heal, transform, and thrive in body, mind, and in your life, in spite of life's circumstances. For this very first episode, I really wanted you to have the opportunity to get to know me and more about the intention of this show. And the best way I know how to do that is through conversations. That is why I have invited one of my closest friends to interview me, Anya Shepelavey. And she is such an empowering woman who has seen me through some of the most challenging times and transformations in my life. And what I love about Anya is her devotion and courage to dive deep into the soul in pursuit of inner peace, self-acceptance, unconditional self-love, and wholeness. Her journey has fueled her passion to help others remember, reclaim, and rebirth the divine love and wisdom within their own hearts. And I am so blessed to have received on numerous occasions from her healings, her sage wisdom, and her incredible ability to hold suffering, other people's suffering, with such grace and tenderness. Anya has an advanced forest yoga teaching certification. She is a NEO white belt teacher, a certified emotion code practitioner, as well as a certified angel guide, and has completed a 3-year shamanic healing training with Susan Thunder Raven of Wusong's School of Shamanic Healing. And she has recently become a mesa carrier for peace. So could you please welcome me, help welcome Anya to the show. Hi, Anya. It's so lovely to have you here for the first episode and your willingness to step in and interview me.
Hey, Lynsie. Hello, everybody. I'm just so delighted and honored and excited to be here and having this conversation with you and kicking off this show. I've been with you for some of the behind the scenes as you've been preparing for the show. So I just feel so blessed and happy that we can start off with the conversation together as you kick off your show.
Yeah. And so one thing that I would love to do for each episode is just to start off with something that I feel is so important for us as women to be able to thrive. And that's to pause and breathe and get grounded in this moment. So what I'd love to do is, Anya, if you would just join me for a moment to just settle in. And for all those that are listening, to take a moment to pause. And if you're not in your car driving, you can even close your eyes and just take a moment to take a deep breath in through your nose. And then perhaps even out through the mouth. And just do that a couple more times, a nice deep breath in. And as you breathe out, just feeling yourself settle down and in. And let's just do one more breath in and out. And if you're able, just placing your hand on your heart and maybe even the other hand on your belly. And then continuing to take several more breaths in and out and just feeling the chest rise and fall in the palms of your hands. And simply by stopping and pausing and breathing and being intentional with our breath, what happens is we become more present to this moment. And by becoming more present to this moment, we can be more present to our life and not be wavering out there amongst the past or projecting out to the future, but we can just be here in this moment and be completely aware of what is happening. And so we'll take another deep breath in and out. And then we'll just gently come back to this moment so that we can dive in and really connect it to one another. It only takes a few seconds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my friend. Well, I am going to take a deep breath in and out as I hand this off to you and let you start to ask me some questions. And hopefully I'll have great answers for them.
Yeah, so it's my pleasure to interview you and learn a little bit more about your inspiration and motivation for thriving unapologetically.
Mhm.
So why don't we start with having you tell us a little bit about yourself, Lynsie, like where you grew up and maybe a little about your childhood.
Oh, wow, that's a
Start
big
with
question.
that.
So I grew up near Charlottesville, Virginia, and that's where I reside now. And um, I grew up in a time where there wasn't a lot of, well, there was no internet. I didn't have even cable TV. So I spent a lot of time outside and really connecting to nature and feeling this beauty of being connected to something that I couldn't name. Your kids, it's still difficult to name as an adult, but I felt this deep, what I would say now, these are not the words I would have used, at 8 years old, but a spiritual connection to my surroundings and being out there and nature all the time just gave me the sense of belonging that I often didn't feel when I was in school. So, and I still feel that to this day, that there's this belonging that can only be felt when I'm surrounded by nature. And so, I had a pretty, I won't say normal childhood because there is no normal, but there were some challenges in my childhood for sure. Um, and growing up in a family dynamic with two older siblings and a younger sibling, and who had very different experiences in their childhood. We talk about it to this day, how my older siblings had a different relationship with my father than I did and my younger brother did, because my father was an alcoholic, and the alcoholism got worse as we got older, the younger children did. And we had to, really navigate that and carry a lot of that pain into our adulthood. And to be able to process that has been a journey. But yeah, and I just spent a lot of time very uncertain about my life. I did go to college for a couple of years, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do, because you're supposed to have everything figured out at 18, 19, 20, and I didn't. So there's a lot of things that occurred in my life that caused me to pause and take some time off from school and to really reflect on what it is that I really wanted to do. And then, of course, I went back to school and got a degree in something that I don't use at all right now. Does that sound familiar to anyone? I mean, there's a lot to
Well,
unpack there, but
maybe that's a good segue. I mean, I feel like we'll revisit going back in time, about how your childhood sort of created the challenges that turned into the turning points in your life. But can you just briefly share with us what your work is now, what your training is, and what influences your current work and what you're doing now?
yeah, I mean, I got a degree in environmental sciences from the University of Virginia, which I used for about 3 years. And then, life came in and kicked me in the butt, and I took um, I spun out for a little bit, and then I had a very big um, spiritual pull um, that caused me to start to meditate more and to do some yoga. And it kind of led me on this path of awakening to a potential in me that I didn't realize I had. And so now it's led me, and we can get a little bit more into the details of all that, what happened in between there, but it led me to where I am now, where I'm claiming my power really as a women's empowerment coach. And with that comes, a yoga teacher training certification, meditation teacher, yoga nidra teacher, a neuro encoding specialist. And those are all just, labels of what I do. But what I really do is I support women to connect to their innate power and their presence so that they can really dissolve all of those belief systems that have held them back for a very long time, and to be able to ignite the innate powers that they hold within them so that they can really step into their lives in a way that is really quite beautiful and that allows them to bring in the joy and the love and even the finances and all that they desire most from their heart, with less striving and less pushing, and they can do it with much more ease and effortlessness. So that's really what I do.
I love that. There's so many questions coming up already about power, our innate power, and our belief systems, and how you got to the point of figuring out that you'd maybe lost your power somewhere along the way. But I feel like that's not how we start our journey, right? We just kind of know something's wrong or something's not going the right way. So maybe take us back to 10, 20 years ago in your life and who you were at that time, and what were those turning points that put you on this path?
That's a great
Would you say
question.
like a spiritual path? Would you call it like a
Um,
spiritual journey or self-discovery?
well, I think a spiritual journey always starts from what I call the pit of despair, where
Mm-hmm.
some people call it the dark night of the soul. But I was, 20 years ago, I was 30. That's even crazy to think about. And I had a really tumultuous 9 months where I lost many family members. I had a health crisis. I, had to give up an unborn child because of the health crisis. I had found out my partner, who I thought was the person I was supposed to be with my whole life, was having an affair with two of my friends. And so I lost my home. I lost my relationship. I lost my job, and all in 9 months. But more importantly, I lost my faith. I really just lost my faith that there was a kind and generous, God or presence out there. And I was just filled with such anger and remorse and grief that I didn't know how to process. I didn't have the tools then. I didn't know what to do with all that. I didn't even know how deeply I was grieving, or how much one of those situations could cause a deep wounding, much less all of them happening in such a short amount of time. So I did not have my spiritual awakening at that moment.
Mm.
Instead, I started, I had lost my job that had to do with my degree. And I just started bartending because it was easy. And it was so easy to go in and have no responsibilities. And after I got off work, I could have fun. I met different people that had nothing to do with all the pain that was in my life. And I could just be free from that and have some freedom without responsibility, which was huge after that year. And but that kind of lifestyle led to some very unhealthy habits that kind of spun me out a little bit. And thankfully, it only was a 3-year stint of drinking too much and partying too much. And but there's always that deep calling in me, like, this is not who you are. This is not who you are.
How are you, can I interrupt? How
Yeah,
are
of
you
course.
feeling that? Was there some, if you reflect back
Yeah.
on that, is there some kind of sensation or part of you? Um,
Yeah. I had this deep, deep ache in my heart. And it was just a feeling, a pull towards something else. Um, and it's difficult to describe because it's just a deep knowing. It was a deep knowing and this almost a magnetic pull, trying to guide me towards something different. Yet the grief was so heavy and the depression was so heavy, and it was so easy just to stay in the darkness and stay in a lifestyle that kind of perpetuated darkness, than it was to do anything else. I didn't know what else to do. I mean, I could feel the pull, but I didn't know what to do. So it took quite some time to be able to find a resource that could help me. And did that answer your question, Anya?
Yeah, I was just wondering, to share sort of for the listeners, when like, how do you know when some part of you is calling you on another
Mm-hmm.
path? And sometimes,
Yeah, I
how do we
felt it in my
recognize those
heart.
signs?
Some
Yeah,
other people say they feel it in their gut, or it's just this,
it's a knowing
it's a
sometimes.
knowing. And I think we all have that. And sometimes we just discount it because we're brought up to believe that we have to have concrete evidence. It has to be something that we can see, taste, or we can have proof of. But we all have this deep knowing, this deep intuitiveness about us, and which gets stronger and stronger the more that you honor it. But at that time, I wasn't really honoring it, but I still was connected to it, and I didn't know how to honor it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that feels like maybe that's where the turning point came in.
It was one of them. I mean, what happened is, I was taking way too much time to um, pulling away from the calling of my heart and just staying in bad relationships, staying in the work that wasn't really honoring me. So it was really one night when I had partied way, way too much. And I just remember sitting there by myself, all jacked up, and just being like, there's no way I'm going to sleep. I have way too much cocaine in my system. But all I wanted to do was to fall asleep because I just knew that I just needed some peace from my mind. I was shaming myself. I was blaming myself. My mind was just going crazy. I was so depressed. I was in despair and angry at myself for doing it again when I told myself I wouldn't do it again. And in that moment, a wave of peace just came over me. And I can't describe it, but I just all of a sudden felt so peaceful, so calm, and very quickly fell asleep when there's no way I should have been able to fall asleep. And so that was a turning point for me. Did I stop doing cocaine and drinking in that moment? No, but 4 months later, I embarked on a journey to become a yoga teacher. And from that point on, I never looked back. And so it was because it was such a beautiful moment in that time where I was like, oh, it kind of reignited me with my faith. That there is a support system there that is listening to me and is supporting me. Still don't fully trust you because you really effed up my life. But you helped me in this moment, and it started making me think a little bit more. And I was also at that time, starting to meditate, and surrounding myself with people that were of a spiritual community. And so I was kind of had one foot in the nightlife and one foot in this new community of spiritual seekers and people that really wanted to support me. And so I was kind of in that liminal space almost of transformation, the beginning of it. So I can't believe we're already at a time for a short break. So I think we should definitely come back to this. But while we go to break, for our listeners, why don't we just take a moment for you to stretch and take a deep breath and just think of those moments in your life that were times that really were catalysts for you for a deeper transformation, and just seeing them perhaps as a catalyst for something bigger, or where you received some sort of support and guidance that you couldn't name. And then when we rejoin this conversation, we can dive in deeper.
All right, all clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Did that sound good on your end, Rachel?
Yes, it did. Thank you for asking.
How are you feeling, Anya?
Good. I mean, I feel like it's awesome. How are you feeling? Do you want to kind of pick up on another turning point before? Because the next
Yeah.
question would be about the title, like how the title of your show came about or the idea of it. So I kind of felt like, you've got one foot in the door,
Yeah.
and then maybe I would ask, like, there've probably been a lot of turning points, but like maybe more, I don't know if there was a significant one, or I don't know.
Um, there's a
What do you
lot of
think?
ones, but maybe I should say, like, how would we come back to this? I don't want to
So
get too much into the yoga training and all that. And, the conversation about Laura would be really big and deep. But I also want to make sure that there's some depth too, because I feel like I'm just kind of skimming the surface a little bit on some things. And I got a little thrown off at the beginning with that first question because I was like, oh shit, my mom's going to hear about the whole alcohol thing and she's going to be really upset about that. But it's my truth. So,
All right, whenever you're ready. I didn't want to interrupt. but-
okay. Um, hmm.
Sorry, we're just trying to figure out
Yeah.
where
So
to.
let's
No,
just
yeah,
fast
you're
forward.
good. I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Rachel. So why don't we just say that, fast forward a little bit, like, I went through, I jumped, after my training, it took me another decade before I could actually get to where I am because there's a lot of the journey is really about these small steps and not one big transformation.
So should I ask when we come back, are you going to say something after are you going to do a after the break commentary, or are we just jumping right in?
I have to do the lead in.
So I can say, so we kind of know about the beginning of your
Mhm.
turning point and what was the trajectory, like if you could sum up the trajectory of the last 10 years and how you ended up where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
Is that too general?
It's kind of general,
What
but
brought you to where you are at this point?
yeah, we can fast forward a little bit and they can wait for my book. Um,
Okay.
okay,
What do you
so
think?
I want to lead them in. Do I just let you know, Rachel, when I'm ready?
Yeah,
Okay, I'm ready.
cool. All right, in 5, 4, 3.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Women Thriving Unapologetically and me, your host, Lynsie McKeown. Today, I'm joined by Anya Shepelavey, who stepped in at the last minute to interview me for this first episode so that you can get to know more about me and the intention of this show through our conversation. And I love how Anya did not hesitate to step in at the last moment when my original guest had to be present for a family crisis. So I just want to say that I love the courage of women like Anya who step in and just despite the unknown and the fear when needed. And I think that really is a nice segue for what we were talking about before about stepping into the unknown and the fear of life and how we can be more present to the calling of our hearts. So thank you so much, Anya, for saying yes when I needed you.
Sure. I'm going to add that we're unapologetically winging it.
Yes. Yeah. And just to continue to step in when we're called to step in.
hmm So, yeah, I wanted to continue the conversation. I know our turning points, because I have a lot in my life too. And I know, when we left off, you were talking about how you sort of had one foot in the door on the spiritual path and one still in the nightclub or at the bar
Mm-hmm.
or that lifestyle. And I know it's been a long journey, but I'd love to hear, or maybe you could share with the audience and your listeners, what that, sort of the more recent part of that journey and how you've ended up where you are now and what brought you to the creation of this particular show.
Yeah, I know. Because when on the break, Anya and I were like, well, there's so much that happens on a spiritual path, and we can't talk about all of it in such a short segment. I know even in an hour show, there's no way we could cover all of it. And I don't want to gloss over the fact that there's so many ins and outs of a spiritual journey. There's so much progress and then what you feel as regress. And so many trials that happen, so that if we're jumping ahead, it doesn't make it, think about that this has taken 12 or more years for me to get to that, from that point 30 years ago, to feeling like I was really steeped in some practices that could really support me. So I'm 50 now, and that was, 20 years ago. And then it wasn't until about 12 or 14 years ago that I really was getting into the yoga and the meditation. And but it didn't cure everything. I was still just struggling deeply, and I needed a teacher. And I actually found a teacher who could really help me open up to some practices that started to heal my heart and actually transform my beliefs, my mind, because our perception is everything. We can have fabulous and fit bodies, which I did, but still be miserable. And because our minds are not steady, and we haven't resolved a lot of childhood traumas or some misbeliefs that we've been indoctrinated into just through our culture. And so I really had to go in and do these deep practices to transform what I believe to be true about myself, what I believe to be true about other people, and about this world that we live in, because it can be a dark place to reside in. And it takes a lot of strength and a lot of dedication to change that perspective and start seeing it through the lens of love. And that's not easy. It is not easy, but it is necessary and essential, because if we don't do it, then nothing's going to change. And our life will be one that is continuously spun in chaos and unhappiness and depression and anxiety and overwhelm. So, when I tell people that, it took me more than 10 years, like, oh, I don't want to do 10 years of work. Well, if you don't, then what's going to happen? You're still going to be living the same life 20 years from now. And so it takes a lot of courage to step into that arena, and you get beat up a little bit, but mostly by yourself. I was great at that, really good at beating myself up. But, the yoga tradition says that in order for there to be profound change, you have to have consistency in your practices. And you must do them for a long period of time. And you must do them with reverence and awe. You have to have some sense of awe for something greater than yourself. So it's through the practices and the continuation of coming back to them that the faith started to come back in. The awe and the reverence started to come back in. And then that built my faith more. And then I wanted to do more practices. And then I always want to have these in my life for the rest of my life. And by doing that, my trust and my heart's guidance blossomed, and I could start to trust her, so that when I did get that nudge, I didn't ignore it, but I listened to her. And it doesn't mean that everything was easy. By far, it was not easy, but it meant that I knew I was being guided to something better, and I just had to be brave enough to follow that guidance and trust that in the end, it was going to become more and more effortless.
I was just reminded of, because I was a yoga practitioner, was it Patabi Joyce that said, practice and all is coming? Was he the one that said it?
Yes. But practice, all is coming, but we forget that the all is coming can be all of it.
All of it is coming.
It's not just the good, but
Yeah.
you practice, it's going to stir up those dark shadows, but that's because they need to be met and processed and transformed. Healing does not happen independent of transformation, and transformation does not happen independent of healing. They go hand in hand, and we have to be able to be willing to have all of it come, and then see all of it as grace and see all of it as divine.
Yeah, and even the idea of practicing, like you were talking about, our own intuition and trusting ourselves and listening to ourselves, that's a practice. When we've been taught not to listen, it's not like we get it all of a sudden, right? It's a constant practice.
You have to nurture that too. It's like a relationship with yourself. You have to constantly nurture it.
Yeah.
And because I do that every day, there's plenty of times throughout my day or my week or my month where I'm questioning, and I have to come back to the practices that help me become grounded in that truth again. I'm like, oh, okay, this is the space. that honors truth and holds wisdom and can keep me grounded and clear when all this other stuff wants to come in and pull me in a million different directions. And I have to be like, no, I'm coming back home to my center.
Unapologetically. So let's talk about which came first, the idea for the show or the title of the show?
Oh, well, I was actually contacted by Voice America to do a show, and I was so excited to be and honored to be a part of this amazing platform. And so, of course, I said yes. And like, you can name the show anything you want. And so it just, as inspiration, comes to me, it just pops in my head. That's why they call it inspiration. And I was like, Women Thriving Unapologetically. And I didn't know what it meant at first. I was like, oh, that just sounds good. And then I
It
had
just came in. It just came in like that. Uh-huh.
And that's how it works for me. It just comes in. And then, I'm inspired by spirit. Here I'm pondering what, the show's name is going to be. And then it's offered to me. And so I'm like, okay, I honor that wisdom that wants to move through me. And I didn't even know what the name meant until I had a friend of mine say, well, what does that mean to you? And then again, it just came through me. And I explained to her that, thriving has 3 definitions. One of which is to, flourish vigorously. You can think of a plant growing vigorously, or the other definition is to prosper. And we think of prospering as accumulating wealth, and wealth can be not just finances, but also the wealth of happiness and the wealth of physical and mental, spiritual health. But the third definition really resonated with me, which is, to move towards one's goals, to continue to move towards one's goals, and to grow despite circumstances. And so that is what thriving is, because so many people are like, oh, I'm not thriving. But if you are continuously moving towards your goals and making those efforts and feeling yourself start to flourish, you might just be a seedling. But if you nourish that seedling, it's going to grow, and it will start to grow more and more vigorously the more that you nourish it. And that you just keep going forward and you keep doing those things that keep you aligned with your heart, and you are thriving and you are supported. And that's the biggest lesson for me. And then the unapologetic piece is that for years and years, I would just feel that calling in my heart, that nudge, that pull, that magnetic, almost sometimes like this intense magnetic pull in my heart. And I would say, no, I'm too afraid. Or I'm sorry, I don't have enough money. I'm sorry, I can feel you, but I don't trust you. Or I can feel you, but I'm too scared. And I would just keep apologizing and apologizing and apologizing. And that would just make me feel small and confined and perpetuate my fear, and then my feeling of not being good enough. But then it just came a time where I was like, okay, I'm trusting this beautiful heart of mine, and I'm not going to apologize to her anymore. I'm going to listen to her, even if it scares the pants off of me. I'm going to do this. I was so close to cursing, you know that, Anya. So I have to follow my heart no matter what, because she will always guide me to the place that I need to be. It might be hard, it might be rough, but she will always guide me to exactly where I need to be. And so now when I hear her calling, like, oh, you want me to do that, do you? Take a deep breath in. And then I'm like, okay, let's do this. And because I'm not going to apologize to her anymore, because then I'm not living the life that I want to live. I'm living small.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to think about who the apology is for, or what the unapologetic thriving is about, or to whom it's unapologetic. And because it could easily also be, from your perspective as you're describing it, it's really about your relationship with your own heart and being in connection and alignment with your own heart, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also then dealing with, when we move into that space, that we're showing up in front of everybody
Yeah.
unapologetically, right? And contending with that also.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I had spoken to many women before this show and was asking them. I have a Facebook group called Women Thriving Unapologetically, which this show is aired in, so you can see the behind the scenes in the Facebook group. But I had asked them, okay, what have you apologized to your heart for? And so actually they volunteered to give some clips, and that we can listen to now and hear their experiences of what they've apologized to their heart. So let's take a moment just to listen
Bet.
to what they have to say.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Is that enough time, Rachel?
Sorry. Yeah, that was a good enough time. This was like your pause, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Are you
Oh,
going to do another one?
No, that was just for that clip that we put in. And then I know we have to go to break. So I think what we could do is come back. And I was like, wow, that was really powerful. And I just invite you to think about what you've apologized to your heart for during this break. Does that sound okay, Rachel?
Yeah. We still had like 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
how long would that segment be? Sorry, I didn't know a lot about that.
The segment that the clips that we're putting in, I think is under 2 minutes.
Under 2 minutes. Okay, well,
It's close
did you
to 2
want to
minutes.
did you want to throw it to break? Like we're about to take a break, or no, just end on
be
that
like, oh,
segment?
that was really powerful. And, I could ask everyone, like, just take a moment to think about, like, I think that could eat up a minute at least. And then we could just maybe go to, if it's a break a little bit early, that's fine.
That sounds perfect.
Okay.
That sounds like a great idea. We'll do that, and then I'll save everything, and then we'll do one more segment.
Okay, great.
Cool. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to count you down for this quick
Okay, thank
little
you.
minute. Yeah, of course. In 5, 4, 3, 2.
So I don't know about you, Anya, but I really felt that in my heart listening to all those women and how they've apologized to their hearts. And I think you had a little clip in there too.
I did. Yeah. So powerful.
Yeah. So, as you're listening to this, just think about how you've apologized to your own heart and how that has felt to have to say you're sorry based on fear, or feeling like you don't have enough or you're not good enough, and what it would be like to finally say yes to your heart and how much more power you would have if you did that. I mean, it's scary, but it is a place of reclaiming your power and also reclaiming choice, which I think is really important for women to have choice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with that, what we're going to do is go ahead and take our last break of the show. But don't go anywhere. Just take that time to settle into your own heart, take a few breaths, because you're not going to want to miss the last portion of our conversation where I talk a little bit about the key to thriving unapologetically.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Were you waiting for me to say something?
Kinda.
Sorry. I was like,
I don't you love how we're gonna put this on YouTube and see all the behind the scenes. I'm like,
actually, the way the questions are going, it's actually they're parsing out pretty well, like for the segments. Because the next one's, yeah, what it takes. And then maybe, yeah, like how to create sustainable, nourishing. What is the mentality to thriving unapologetically? What's the approach that's sustainable, nourishing, and yield success in your mind, in relationships, and work, and personal growth? And then talking about the flip side of that,
Mhm.
And then maybe then just wrapping up with like revisiting what the show is about and how you want to inspire people, what your intentions are with the show, what you're excited about, and if there's anything you're
And then,
about.
what I have coming up.
Oh, who are your guests coming up?
No. What I have on coming up in terms of my program.
Oh, what do you have coming up in terms of your
What am I
program?
excited about coming up? Yeah.
Oh, what are you excited about? Okay, that's
Mhm.
coming up for you.
Yeah. Or how can people work with me?
All right.
How-
Whenever you're ready.
Okay.
All right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know that if you're ready or not.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
You
I'm
didn't
ready.
count down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Here, I'm gonna count down now.
Okay, sorry. I'm all excited.
No, yeah, you're good. You're good. I just don't want to cut you off.
Okay.
All right. In 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Women Thriving Unapologetically, and me, your host, Lynsie McKeown. Today, I'm being interviewed by a dear friend, Anya Shepelavey, and I'm so excited to dive back into our conversation about thriving unapologetically.
Yeah, it's great to be back. So, Lynsie, why don't you take us through what you believe it takes to thrive unapologetically? Like, for example, what's the mentality? What's an approach for thriving unapologetically that's sustainable and nourishing and yields success? And that can be success, right, across a whole slew of things,
Mhm.
relationships, our mental state of being, work, personal growth.
Yeah,
I know that's a loaded question, but
it's a big question. I think I
yeah.
can handle it.
That's why you
So,
have a show that answers all these questions.
woo, okay, we don't have a lot of time left. Let's see what I can do with this. So, I think the key and what I have found to be true, that it really starts with honoring your pace. And when we try to keep up with the pace of the world, which is quite frankly chaotic, and every year we're being pushed harder and striving more, and the result of that is that anxiety is going up, depression is going up, sense of overwhelm, the sense of not being fulfilled. And so we really need to come back to wholeness through the body and understanding that the body is not meant to be in this state of high intensity all the time. If you think of a car, a tachometer on a car, if you have your foot on the gas and that tachometer is in the red the whole time, the engine is going to burn out. But this is what we're doing to our bodies all the time. We have our foot on the gas and we feel like we're too afraid to take our foot off the gas because we might be left behind, or we have to do more and have more in order to be more of value. We have to be producing something all the time. But what we're doing is not actually serving us. It's actually doing more harm than it is good. And so what we have to do is have the courage to pull back. I mean, when I did this, it terrified me to stop. I was doing so much because I wanted my business to thrive. I had this deep soul purpose to serve women and to help them. But how was I going to help them if I was just a hot mess too? And
Mhm.
so I had to take all of this stuff off my plate and have the courage to do it. And when I did, I cried. I mean, I literally cried because I was terrified. If I stop doing, then who am I going to be? What is my life going to look like? My business is going to fail. But I also cried because I was so relieved. I was like, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. I can't keep doing this. And so it took probably about 6 to 8 months for my nervous system to settle down and get used to a pace that felt right to me. And I kind of always joke that, oh my God, I'm like, my pace is like 100-year-old Galapagos turtle now. And I want to be the hare. I want to be the hare, but I'm not. And when I honored that pace that really felt right to me and got comfortable with it, what happened is I was actually able to sense underneath, like, one, my body started to heal, my nervous system started to settle down, so I could actually reconnect to that beauty and that innate wisdom that was in me that I was already connected to, but she came through so much more powerfully than she ever had before. And she started to guide me in a direction that I didn't know I was meant to go. That's when I started being like, oh my gosh, I'm actually meant to be this empowerment coach for women. I'm actually meant to teach people how to connect to the divine feminine, to awaken something that's been pushed down and ignored for millennia, to reawaken these energies so that we can come into wholeness again. But I would never have heard that unless I would have slowed down and found my pace. My pace is very different than your pace. It's very different than my partner's pace. And so we honor our own pace and don't compare it to someone else's. And we let that and so that our guidance can come through and we can live our life from that place that is actually much more easeful and effortless than trying to keep up with everyone else.
Right. I was going to say, I know you and I share a lot about our journeys and our pain points and our growth points, and that pretty much in a similar time frame, we both slowed a lot of things down and changed the pace of things. And as you were talking, it occurred to me that there's got to be, again, just like when we embark on a spiritual journey, sometimes it's not by choice, it's because a crisis happens in our lives.
Mhm.
And I know you were talking about how you changed the workload that you had on your plate. But what was it? Was there a belief system you uncovered? Like, what was the turning point for making the changes? Was it your physical health,
You know,
mental health?
I have, in the past, I think I have several reserve tanks. So I wasn't realizing that I was on my reserves, but the symptoms were there. I was getting migraines all the time,
Mm-hmm.
up to the point where I was getting them 2, 3 times a week. And then I was having headaches the other days of the week. I maybe had one day when I didn't have a headache or a migraine. And that's frustrating because then that slows you down. And then all the fear would come back in. Oh, I'm not doing anything. I need to be doing something. Um,
So your body
and
was trying to slow you down,
my body was
saying, "Hey,
definitely
lady."
saying, hey, I'm trying to give you a signal here. I don't
Mm.
understand why you can't get this one. I'll give you another migraine. Oh, let's give you another one. And I still wasn't getting it. And then, I just wasn't happy. I mean, I
Mm.
wasn't doing the things that lit me up. I wasn't making time to be in nature. Remember in the beginning, I said nature is like the balm and the connection back to spirit for me and my sense of purpose. And so I was just doing all the things everyone was telling me to do that I needed to do to be successful. And I realized, my life isn't dictated by an algorithm, and my life isn't dictated by someone else's step-by-step roadmap to success. My success comes from when I tap in to the divine within my heart and the wisdom within my heart, and I honor her. And when I do that, everything flows with beauty and grace. And it doesn't mean that it's easy, but I can meet that from a place of strength and resilience and clarity that I don't have when I'm running all over the place and being everything to everyone. So the thing that I actually teach women now is like, okay, we start with the first step of rest and restoration. You've got to see rest as a birthright and as a ritual, and so that you can recover and restore your nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a hot mess right now. We don't even realize it because for so long we've been going at this pace and we think it's normal, that we don't even realize that we're not well until we start to get that rest and restoration. They're like, oh my gosh, I was so far away from my center and my wholeness that I thought that was like what life was about. And then,
Right.
once you get the nervous system back into a more restful rhythm, its natural state of rest, then we can start to address, okay, how do we get you into alignment with your heart and activate the power of the heart, which is courage, which is strength, which is beauty and wisdom and how do we activate some of those divine feminine powers? Because the divine feminine is flipping powerful. It is so powerful, and it's so misunderstood and misrepresented in our culture. But when you tap into that, you awaken a part of yourself that you didn't even know you had, because we weren't allowed to bring her out for a very long time. And we've been conditioned to believe that she's not powerful, that she's less than, that she doesn't have a voice, that she's not worthy. But when you bring her forward, it's like you unfurl, and you're like, wow, this is who I'm meant to be. And she's badass. And it's not from that place of, overcoming the masculine and all that. It's about bringing the two parts together so that you do have that sense of wholeness, because a part of you has been ignored for so long. And then from that place, an empowered place of strength, we can go into the darker stuff and say, okay, what are the beliefs that were fueling me to work so hard and push so hard to the point where I was getting migraines all the time, or I have so much anxiety, I'm having to take medication, or I'm self-medicating with alcohol to get myself to sleep. And then I have to drink a whole bunch of caffeine in the morning to get me going again and throughout the day. That's not fine. And that's not true health. And so we go in and we start to discover the beliefs that are fueling that pattern. And then we start to dissolve them and replace them with belief systems that are actually in line with your heart. And then from that place, you are able to thrive and flourish and prosper, and to do it unapologetically. You can claim your space, you can claim your power, and feel really good about it. And it's not like an in your face kind of like, oh, I'm going to claim my space and my power, and I am woman, hear me roar. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but this is from a different place of infinite wisdom and truth that I'm talking about.
Yeah, it sounds like unplugging from a general programming that's outside of us, and really learning to tune in to ourselves in a much different way. And I feel like that innate power is almost a paradox in a way, because we feel like if we slow down, we're not going to be in power or in control, and we're going to lose something, right? And it feels like the wrong move.
Yeah, and it makes
But
us feel vulnerable.
yeah, it's the
And we
vulnerability
don't like to
that's
feel
scary.
vulnerable, but what
Yeah.
we don't understand is that vulnerability is not weakness, that we have, it's inner vulnerability that we find our greatest power and our greatest strength. And, and it's like when we slow down, it's like, well, I'm pulling away from the pack. Everyone else is doing this. So if I pull away from it, then what does that mean? Am I going to be left behind? Am I going to be forgotten? But you're not. You're actually going to remember.
Ooh, beautiful.
You're going to remember.
Yeah, let's sit with that, leave with that. So we have just a few more minutes left of the show, and I really wanted to talk, or have you talk about what journey you intend to take your listeners on with this show, and also what offerings you have coming down the pipeline for people to support women in the process of thriving unapologetically.
So with this show, I really, really hope that this will be a platform to bring in women like you who are thriving despite circumstances and have really unique and beautiful stories to share, so that they have a platform to share not their story and to get their voices out into the world, so that the women that are listening to the show can feel connected, because it's through the connection with other women that we realize that we're not alone, and we realize the power that we hold within us, and that it also gives us the courage to find our own voice and to do that deeper work. And so I really want to create a close-knit community here as the show grows, where women are connecting with me through their questions in the Facebook group, or questions through Voice America's, my email, or however we want to connect, so that the questions that you have that are weighing heavily on you can be answered in the show, and that you can learn techniques and practices, something to take away every single time that will help you heal and transform, so that you too can thrive and move towards that thriving. So that is really important for me. And then, the things that I'm really super excited about coming up are me just sharing a lot of these techniques in a very close community of women for a program that I have. It's a year-long immersion where once a month we meet and we dive in and we answer these questions and we start to awaken these powers within us using a lot of the archetypes of the goddesses so that we can see the shadow and the light of that. So if anyone wants to know more about that, they're welcome to email me or go to my website, lynsiemckeown.com, to find out more. And I make it very easy for people to connect with me so that they have questions and want to connect and have a conversation. I'm always happy to do that. And with all of that, our hour is up. Can you believe that?
It's amazing.
It is
Yeah.
up. So
Is there one last thought you have about like what you're excited about?
yeah, I'm just excited to
We-
be here. Like, this is definitely a divine intervention for me to be here. It came in at the right time and I'm trusting it and I'm going with it. And I can't wait to see how this show evolves, and all the women that have lined up are amazing. Next week, we have Ariane Traverso coming in talking about women making an impact in business. So all I'd like to say is thank you, Anya, for being here. I so appreciate you. And I want to thank everyone that's listening to this first episode for joining us today on Voice America's Empowerment Channel for Women Thriving Unapologetically. And I hope that you'll come back each week to learn how to do that for yourself. And we'll be live every Thursday at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. And so please review, rate, and subscribe and leave me a message. Like I said, I love to connect. And I am Lynsie McKeown, and I look forward to hearing from you. And until next time, many, many blessings, my friends.
Awesome. All clear. Great show.
Woo,
Woo.
woo.
Okay, Rachel, you've heard a lot of shows. What was your opinion?
I loved it. I love that you had one of your friends ask you, about yourself. I think that's really unique and a great start, honestly. So rather than you just telling everyone about yourself.
You killed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aaron said you killed it. I don't know if you heard that.
Oh, I didn't hear him. Hi, Aaron.
You killed it.
That's so
Yay.
nice.
Yep.
Yay. Thank you so much, Aaron. I appreciate you guys doing this last minute and helping us out, because I was kind of laughing because the show is about thriving despite circumstances. And I was like, oh, here we go. See, divine is just like, okay, let's
We gotta-
test
we
this
gotta live it
theory.
to preach it.
It's true.
Yes.
All right,
thank
we'll
you.
get this produced for you. You have a fantastic day, and you'll be able to hear it live tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care.
You
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, Anya, we're still recording. Is there anything that we want to say to people watching this? Any last follow-up things that we didn't get to say in the show?
I feel like this topic of thriving unapologetically, there's so much you can explore. I mean, so much.
Mhm.
Just loved hearing the beginnings of your journey. And I feel like every element and aspect of your journey, my journey, could be a 1-hour show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's such a rich topic. I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited for you to have this platform to share
Yes.
and to have other women on and sharing their journeys and what they do. And it feels like it's going to be super amazing and powerful.
Yeah. So for anyone watching this all the way to the end, and this is something we didn't get a chance to say on the live radio broadcast, but today when I found out my dear friend, had a family member passing away and she wasn't going to be able to interview me.
She would have been a great person to interview you, I feel like, right?
Oh,
Julie,
yeah.
she would have done a great job, I feel like.
Yeah. But,
Yeah.
who was, of course, Anya was like, okay, I got to call Anya because you've known me for so long. And I love how you just said yes immediately. I didn't have to beg you or anything. But, I had a friend say that this because I was like, oh, wow, you know, I'm going to be doing this and we got to figure this all out. And we have all these things that we had, all the pieces need to suddenly are all up in the air. And we have to bring it all together because the show was supposed to be tomorrow live. And she sends me this, my friend Paula sends me this message like, yeah, remember that Super Bowl where Prince played, you know, the one where it rained like crazy and everyone's freaking out and they're saying, oh, you know, we have to cancel the show. We just got to cancel it. It's not safe. And then they go to Prince and they ask him what he wanted to do. You know, Prince, so cool, so unbelievably cool. He's just like, can you make it rain harder? And then it turned out to be this epic show. I mean, it was unbelievable. One of the best Super Bowls ever. And she's like, well, just think, you know, it's rainy. Can it rain any harder for you today? Let's make it epic. And so I love that. So I'm not sure if I made it as epic as Prince could have made it, but
yeah,
I
you
feel
need
like
your like purple sequined outfit. But
yeah,
I mean, it's true. It's like thriving no matter what, right? No matter what the circumstances.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't get a chance to plug you at all. So if anyone, you know, you could find Anya on Instagram at Star Heart Healing.
I'm not seeing clients though.
That's okay.
But people can still get in touch. People can email me.
People can email you and connect with you. And, you know, she's taking a hiatus right now from seeing clients, doing a lot of her deep work right now that is will bring her back out in a very powerful way. So I honor you for knowing when to stop.
When to not see clients.
Yeah, it takes a lot of bravery to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, my friend.
Well, this has been really fun. Yeah.
Okay, you're awesome.
You're awesome too.
Thank you.
Go,
Bye.
Lynsie. Bye.